on Salisbury Hill. I could see the city light. Wind was blowing, time stood still. Eagle flew out of the night. He was something to observe. Came in close, I heard a voice, standing, stretching every nerve. I had to listen, had no choice. I did not believe the information, just had to trust imagination. My heart going boom, boom, boom. Son, he said, grab your things, I'm gonna take you home. Eh, don't quit. To keep in silence, I resigned. My friends would think I was a nut, turning water into wine. Open doors would soon be shut. So I went from day to day. My life was in a rut, till I thought of what I'd say, which connection I should cut. I was feeling part of the scenery. I walked right out of the machinery. My heart going boom, boom, boom. Hey, he said, grab your things, I'm gonna take you home. Hey, back home. When illusions spin a net, I'm never where I wanna be. At liberty she pirouette. When I think that I am free, watch my empty silhouette, who close their eyes but still can see. No one taught them etiquette. I will show another me. Today I don't need a replacement. I tell them what the smile on my face meant. My heart going boom, boom, boom. Hey, I said, you can keep my things, they're gonna take me home.
Tonight on VSRF Live, we welcome David Icke for a wide-ranging conversation about the forces reshaping our world and what they could mean for the future of freedom, human autonomy, and society itself.
What the World Health Organization did was dictate to all the countries of the world, or nearly all of them, how they should respond to COVID. Now, you'll remember that the Silicon Valley corporations, I was banned by them, they came out and said anyone who's questioning, exposing, whatever, the World Health Organization or health organizations in countries' version of COVID, we are going to censor. And immediately you go, well, you're supposed to be the town square where all this is debated. What are you doing? Right at the start, saying we're going to censor anyone who's challenging that.
Hello and welcome to VSRF Live. I'm Livio Sanchez. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Every generation reaches moments when people begin asking bigger questions. Who holds power? Who shapes public perception? How do new technologies change not only the way we live, but the way we're governed? And perhaps most importantly, how do we distinguish between healthy skepticism, evidence, and speculation in an age where trust in institutions has been steadily eroding? Our guest tonight, David Icke, has spent more than 3 decades asking those questions. He has challenged conventional thinking and encouraged millions of people around the world to question widely accepted narratives. In an interview recorded yesterday, Steve Kirsch and David Icke discussed artificial intelligence, surveillance, and the growing concentration of political and institutional power. While they agree on many issues, they also disagree on the forces they believe have shaped many of the defining events of the past several decades. Following the interview, Steve will join me live to answer your questions, share his thoughts on the discussion, and continue the conversation with all of you. So be sure to put your questions in the chat, all caps, and I'll get to as many as I can later in the program. But before we get started, I'd like to remind everyone to sign VSRF's petition calling for a review and appeal of the 1986 National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act. If you haven't already signed and shared it, please take a moment to do so. Janet will put the link in the chat. And I'm not going to waste any more time. Let's get to this interview with Steve Kirsch and David Icke. Here we go. I'd like to welcome David Icke to VSRF Live. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm good, mate.
Great to have you on. It's an honor to have you on. And I'm going to read your bio for those in our audience who don't know who you are or anything about you. So I'll start with that.
Okay.
For more than 3 decades, David has challenged conventional thinking, encouraged people to question widely accepted narratives, and inspired millions around the world to think more deeply about the forces shaping society. Through his best-selling books, documentaries, lectures, and interviews, he has explored a wide range of topics from politics and technology to consciousness, human freedom, and the future of humanity. David has authored more than 20 books, including his latest release, The Roadmap: Escaping the Maze of Madness. His work has been translated into multiple languages, making him one of the world's most widely recognized independent authors and public speakers. Before embarking on his prolific writing career, David was a professional footballer and later a television sports broadcaster in the UK. Since the early 1990s, he has devoted his life to researching, writing, and speaking about issues he believes deserves greater public awareness, independent inquiry, and open dialogue. And it's truly an honor to have you here, David. And before we start, I do want to set the table for your conversation and go back to October 2020, because
Whoa.
you were saying things way back when that have all basically come true, and they're happening right now in real time. So I want to go back and play this short clip of you talking during the lockdowns in England in October of 2020. Here it comes.
A few consequences, a few riders. First of all, you have to have the Gates vaccine, which has an horrific and sinister agenda for humanity. And it won't be one either, it'll be one after the other. You will have to do what the government says. If you don't do what the government says, you don't get it. And we have a precursor to that in Australia, where the government's introduced legislation that says that if you're on state benefits, see guaranteed income that's coming, and you don't have your child vaccinated according to a whole list of government recommended vaccinations, then you lose benefits. And this is a precursor of the guaranteed income, total control. But to bring that about, you have to destroy people's independent access to income and to employment. And that's what the lockdowns are all about.
I'll leave it with that clip to start the conversation. Steve, go ahead and take it away. I'll be back later to follow up the conversation.
Okay. So you were right. You're based in London, is that right?
No, I'm gateway to the a few riders. First of all, you have to have the Gates vaccine, which has an horrific and sinister agenda for humanity. And it won't be one either, it'll be one after the other. You will have to do what the government says. If you don't do what the government says, you don't get it. And we have a precursor to that in Australia, where the government's introduced legislation that says that if you're on state benefits, see guaranteed income that's coming, and you don't have your child vaccinated according to a whole list of government recommended vaccinations, then you lose benefits. And this is a precursor of the guaranteed income, total control. But to bring that about, you have to destroy people's independent access to income and to employment. And that's what the lockdowns are all about.
I'll leave it with that clip to start the conversation. Steve, go ahead and take it away. I'll be back later to follow up the conversation.
Okay.
I don't really know what's going on. I'm so sorry. We are having a technical difficulty, or at least I am. I'm going to try this one more time and see if the echo goes away. I'm assuming you can hear me right now without echo. So if you can stay in the chat, can you hear me right now? And is it echoing? If it's not echoing, let me try this one more time on the video. I'm not sure why the video playback is echoing. Here, I'm going to try it one more time. Because you clip of you talking during the lockdowns in England, during the lockdowns, October of 2020. Here it comes.
A few consequences, a few riders. First of all, you have to have the Gates vaccine, which has an horrific and sinister agenda for humanity. And it won't be one either, it'll be one after the other. You will have to do what the government says. If you don't do what the government says, you don't get it. And we have a precursor to that in Australia, where the government's introduced legislation that says that if you're on state benefits, see guaranteed income that's coming, and you don't have your child vaccinated according to a whole list of government recommended vaccinations, then you lose benefits. And this is a precursor of the guaranteed income, total control. But to bring that about, you have to destroy people's independent access to income and to employment. And that's what the lockdowns are all about.
I'll leave it with that clip. Okay, I figured out the problem. So I'm going to play this from a different vantage point. So this one will work. Here we go. Let me try this one more time.
That says that if you're on state benefits, see guaranteed income that's coming, and you don't have your child vaccinated according to a whole list of government recommended vaccinations, then you lose benefits. And this is a precursor of the guaranteed income, total control. But to bring that about, you have to destroy people's independent access to income and to employment. And that's what the lockdowns are all about.
So I'll leave it with that clip to start the conversation. Steve, go ahead and take it away. I'll be back later to follow up the conversation.
Okay. So you were right. You're based in London, is that right?
No, I'm based in outside of London.
Okay. All right. But close.
Yeah. Well, everywhere's pretty close here.
Yeah. So we were talking before the show that, so let me ask you, how many people do you know regret not getting the vaccine? Anybody?
Well, no, I don't. I know and come across and meet often people who are deeply relieved that they never had it. And, you know, the whole thing regarding this fake vaccine, not a vaccine according to previous criteria, opens up, it's almost like a gateway to the cesspit, because you have to look at it from a bigger picture point of view, that somehow a very relatively tiny group of people in a world we're told is 8 billion plus, has orchestrated an entire psyop to get access to the bodies of enormous numbers of people, more than once, over and over in many cases. And so who are these people? Why do they want that access? To what end? And what's their agenda? So, you know, it's not just that you're talking about one vaccine or fake vaccine. You're opening the door to this vast area of the hidden, in which this whole thing and human society in general is orchestrated and manipulated from. I mean, why would they want access to, literally billions of people on a scam, on a lie? Why would they? I mean, who are these people answering to ultimately? I mean, I've been now for 36 years uncovering a global network I call the global cult, which is a vast global network of secret societies, fiercely compartmentalized. So most of the people in it don't know the big picture of the big picture. And ultimately, it's orchestrated by an inner circle, globally orchestrated. And through this network, they were able to pull off this COVID, in which virtually the entire world, in terms of its national health departments, its national governments, actually reacted in exactly the same way and told you all the repeating lies. And this is the thing about the way this cult works. You don't need vast numbers of people, even within it or manipulated by it, to know they're lying. You just need them to repeat the official story without question, in the knowledge that if they're in some kind of profession like the health profession, if they don't repeat it, then they're out the bloody door. And we saw through this whole COVID period, the brave people, the brave doctors, the brave nurses who could see through it all and spoke out about it, and they were out of the door. Whereas the repeaters that told us, oh, it's safe and effective, and it's going to allow you to get out of the restrictions, put on the restrictions problem, offer you the solution to the restrictions, the fake vaccine, they are still like TV doctors. They're still wheeled onto television programs to ask them what's the what should people do about this disease or that disease or this situation or that situation, when they have actually sat there during COVID and condemned enormous amounts of people to either fatality as a result of this fake vaccine or lifelong health destruction and health problems. And so it's not just a vaccine. It's not just COVID, it's this opening of the door to a much bigger picture, of which COVID was a very important period.
Okay, so you think there's this global conspiracy led by this inner circle that drove these vaccines, as opposed to that it is just a medical system where Tony Fauci said, hey, I think the solution is the vaccine. Everybody follow me. I know what I'm doing. I'm the expert, and we will save lives. Explain
Mate,
to me.
I've been doing this for 36 years, mate.
Okay.
It's much bigger than that.
Okay. Where's the evidence that it's much bigger than that?
Well, I've been writing books, some of which are about that bloody thick, of putting together all the interconnected information and the interconnected evidence. And I'm not going to just sit here in a short interview and say this is that, it's the other. People have to read the books, or if they don't want to read the books,
give me the smoking gun. What's the smoking gun evidence? Where's the memo? Who are the people behind this? Where's the smoking gun? Where is the someone who is whistleblowing on this inner circle? Where's the memo? Where's the meeting? Where's the evidence?
See, what you're doing is you're coming from basically the left side of the brain, and you're asking for one piece of smoking gun evidence.
You give me more.
No, hold on a minute. Just let me finish. Whereas if you research this over decades, you pick up pieces of evidence from endless different sources and you fit them together. And, there are people who have talked about the fact that they were pressured to give this fake vaccine when they didn't really want to do so, but they knew the effect on their careers. And you can pick it up at one level.
I totally agree with that, by the way.
No, you can pick it up at one level and you can focus it on one man. But it's vastly greater than that. And if you just focus attention on one guy like Fauci, then you're going to miss the tapestry in which people like him operate, because it's not just that it comes from one person. He's a cog in a machine. And, if you look at people like Ted Ross at the World Health Organization, who is effectively owned by Bill Gates, who is enormously close, to say the least, to the Rockefeller family, you're then starting to go back from Fauci into a much bigger picture that in which this whole fake vaccine was orchestrated. You can't just say, oh, Fauci one day said, well, I think the vaccine's the way to save people. What about Pfizer? What about Moderna? What about all these other elements of this without which this fake vaccine couldn't have appeared? It couldn't have been played out. You had to have then politicians who were changing laws and imposing restrictions on people so that they would have these fake vaccines. So it's a much bigger picture than just one person. And if you if you're interested in the scale of what I'm talking about, then read the books, or if you're not, then don't. But to just say, oh, where's the key piece of evidence? Where's the meeting? Where's the memo? Do you think that this cult works with memos? I think the inner circle of this works with memos where it can be followed. It's done in much more secretive ways.
Okay.
The people that are participating this, you never see. They're not on public display. Even people like Gates are just gophers for it. and Fauci would be a gopher for it. They won't be people who are calling the shots ultimately.
Okay, let me ask the question in a different way. Suppose there was a real virus that was killing people, a threat to civilization, and it's projected to kill massive numbers of people if we didn't do something about it. Suppose it's a real threat. And suppose there's a guy named Tony Fauci who said, hey, I think we can develop a vaccine against it. And suppose that Moderna and Pfizer actually were developing a vaccine against this threat. Then wouldn't you expect people to align behind that and believe and act exactly the same way as if this was a totally legitimate, real thing? Wouldn't they act exactly like they acted with no conspiracy whatsoever?
Oh, you're a coincidence theorist then. Oh, well done.
No, I'm just raising the question.
No. But what you're trying to do is to make the case that there's no conspiracy. Okay, well,
no, I'm asking. So how can you rule that out? How can you rule out that there's no conspiracy?
People should believe that. Well, I tell you how I can rule it out from my own experience.
Okay.
I've been uncovering this global cult and how it works and what its agendas are, and where it wants to take humanity for, like I say, 36 years now. And so the reason I was able to call the sequence that was COVID was because of all the research I'd done that went before. And I could see immediately that this virus story had the potential to give this cult the opportunity to advance its agenda very rapidly as a result of what I call problem, reaction, solution. You create a problem or the illusion of one, and then you offer the solution to the problems you've created. Problem, reaction, solution has been used throughout modern times, at least, and before, to bring about the public acceptance of something that they would otherwise resist. So you have to create a problem or the illusion of one to which people can react, or what we're going to do something. And then those who've created the problem or the illusion of it can then offer the solution to the problem they have covertly created. And so when I started to see this COVID situation start to develop in late 2019, early 2020, it had all the elements of things that I'd researched over and over and over again, all the elements of the techniques. And that's why I was able in early 2020 to call what was coming, because of researching the background to it and seeing this is just the replay again of the same series of techniques. So how do you kind of predict with such certainty what's coming if you haven't done the research before to see the methodology and the techniques that are used by this cult, which I had over and over again, and the COVID was a classic.
Because the pattern would be the same if there was no conspiracy. That's the issue.
Well, don't believe in a conspiracy, mate. I've not come on here to persuade you that there's a conspiracy. I don't need to. Lots and lots of people now are starting to see that the world's not how they thought it was. I'm not come here to persuade you there's a conspiracy. Believe something else, mate. Don't matter to me.
I'm simply asking you for the inconsistency between the story of if you take the conspiracy hypothesis and go down that route versus the non-conspiracy hypothesis and go down that route. I'm asking you for what are the differences? How does someone like yourself, who is an expert, tell the difference between the pattern of how people would react to a legitimate emergency with no conspiracy at all versus how they would react to the fake emergency with a conspiracy? Explain to me the telltale signs so that somebody who's smart can explain the difference between, look, here's what happened in this case where this would not happen if this was a legitimate emergency and there was no conspiracy. This would not happen. Tell me the differentiators so that people can tell it apart in the future. Okay, or even looking backwards, here were the telltale signs that it was a conspiracy and not simply people just reacting the way they would normally react if this was a real emergency.
I've just explained to you what it takes, and that is the experience of seeing how this cult works and the techniques that it uses, and then seeing them play out and being able to predict how they would play out because you've done the research into how the techniques work. And what I do is I say what I found, I communicate what I found and how I see the situation. I've written the best part of 30 books about all this over the years. And then people decide from their own initiative whether they accept that or whether they don't. And they either believe it was a conspiracy or they believe it was just things naturally playing out. But I wasn't being facetious when I talked about coincidence theorists. There's so many coincidences that happen that if they didn't happen, then what plays out couldn't play out. I mean, the fact that this fake vaccine was in the pipeline before, and they've done basically no official trials on it anyway. So it was a experimental vaccine. More and more people, even within the medical profession, have realized that it's a very different kind of vaccine. It's more like gene therapy than vaccination. So you have this new vaccine just kind of there, and that they were saying when the whole virus thing was played, oh, we've got to get a vaccine, and it could take some time. I remember in the early days, it could be years before there's a vaccine, and suddenly there's a bloody vaccine by the end of 2020. Why? Because it was in the background waiting. And if you want people to have a vaccine, then first of all you have to persuade them that that's the best thing. And the greatest form of manipulation is fear. Once you are in fear of something, you look outside of yourself for someone to protect you from what you fear, i.e., authority in all its different forms. And so you persuade people through fear. This is the way to save your family and save you and all that. And for those that are still resistant, well, you do everything you can to make it mandatory and force it upon them. We had people in this country in the various professions who were told, if you don't have the fake vaccine, then you're down the road. You're out of a job.
But they would say that if it's a real vaccine. If it's a real vaccine and a real emergency, people would react exactly the same way.
Well, but of course people would react like that. That's why they're manipulated to react like that. This global cult, as I've said many times and written at great length, is absolutely expert, this inner circle and all its offshoots. are absolutely expert on the manipulation of human perception, thus human behavior,
Okay.
which is just perception made manifest.
So do they want to kill us?
They know. No, let me finish, man. So they know that if you press button A, you're going to get reaction B, but not in everyone. So you have to deal with some of them in a different way. So that's when you say, well, we're going to do it as best we can, make it mandatory. And we had people in this country in the care home industry who were told, looking after old people and looking after people who need care, they were told, if you don't have the fake vaccine by this date, then you're out. You're out the door. You're without a job. And that's what happened. But then when a few months later, as it started to get out to people, maybe this is not all it seems, just a little bit, you had a date given to national health service workers in this country, the health service industry. And they were told, if you don't have this fake vaccine by this date, you're fired. The problem was that by this time, enough people in the health service industry had started to question the story, not least empty hospitals when there was a bloody apparent pandemic on, that they refused in such numbers to have the fake vaccine that the government had to drop the mandatory element and say that's okay. Never mind the healthcare, the care home workers who'd been forced to have it, those who submitted to it. But there's so many people that had sussed it by then in the health industry in this country that they couldn't. The health industry would have just collapsed if they'd have all been fired. But you've got to look at all these different elements and fit them all together. There's so many of them and so many elements of it that and the other thing was that you had people pointing out that this fake vaccine had not gone through trials, had not been confirmed to be safe, and so hold on a minute. So let me get this straight. You are planning to meet what you say is a virus, a deadly virus. Where's COVID now, by the way? A deadly virus, and the only way to respond to it is with a vaccine, a fake vaccine that hasn't undergone the normal vaccine trials to show it's safe and effective. So what's all that about? If you put it all together and all these other elements that I do in the books, then you can see that there was a vaccine waiting in the wings. They had this pandemic to justify the vaccine waiting in the wings to be brought out, and either manipulated people through fear to have it or through mandatory imposition. And the problem, there's the deadly vaccine, had its solution, which was the deadly fake vaccine, the virus and the deadly fake vaccine. So if people come along and they say, here's one smoking gun, then they've not done a tremendous amount of research then. But if you put the tapestry of interconnected information together, and you can only do that in books, you see where everything is pointing, especially when the whole same problem, reaction, solution scenario has been played on people over and over again by this cult, because it's the technique, a technique of choice. But people have to decide, take their power back from the stories that they're told by authority, oh, this is why this is happening, and this is how we sort it out. Take it back, that power, and say, I'm going to do my own research, and I'm going to see if what I'm being told here stands up to scrutiny. And they'll read my books, they'll read some other people's books, they'll do their own research, and then, and this is the point, they'll decide themselves how they see the situation. And this is what I've been saying over the years with my books and my work. Here's some information, make of it what you will, and you decide whether to believe all of it, some of it, or none of it. I'm not trying to tell people this is what you must believe. God, we're drowning in them people, aren't we? I'm saying, here's some information. Here's another way of looking at this. You make your own mind up. And that's what I've done all along.
So do you think the flu vaccine works? You think it saves lives or prevents hospitalizations?
No. No, personally.
Do you think it kills people?
My kids and grandkids have not been vaccinated. My son is in his 40s now. He must be. My other son's in his 30s. They have phenomenal immune systems. They very rarely get ill, and certainly not seriously. And they've never been vaccinated. And I've not had vaccinations for a vast amount of time either.
We agree. We agree. But I'm just asking you about the flu vaccine. Is the flu vaccine effective, or is it effectively a placebo?
I don't think it's effective at all. I mean,
does it kill people?
I've never.
Is it like taking a placebo?
Well, well, no, it's not like taking a placebo. You're introducing chemical cocktails into the body.
Okay.
That's not no, hold on. That's not done neutrally. People can argue, oh yeah, well, it has this effect and therefore it's a good thing, but it ain't neutral. What's in a flu vaccine is not a placebo. And again, you look at your own experience.
Okay, we agree. We agree. We're no argument.
Who've not had the flu vaccine and never had the bloody flu, including myself.
Okay, so for how many years has the flu vaccine been required in healthcare and in schools and so forth? Like, for how many years has the flu vaccine been required for healthcare workers?
Well, you tell me.
I don't know. I think it's probably decades.
Yeah, okay. And?
So here's an example. So do you think this is part of the global conspiracy that they said, hey, let's use the flu vaccine, let's use influenza as part of our agenda to try to, what is our agenda? Are they trying to kill people? Are they trying to control people? Because they've done it with the flu vaccine. In fact, in California, there are 10 vaccines that are required to attend school in California. 10 different vaccines. This has been going on for decades.
And
so my point is that this is something that society is used to. This is no different than the pattern that has happened before for decades. This COVID is simply just the latest manifestation of a pattern that has been going on for decades. And so why do you think this is suddenly a conspiracy?
Why don't you just believe there's no conspiracy? And I'll believe there is, and then everything will be fine.
That sounds so wonderful.
People will believe what they choose to believe.
Okay.
Now,
all right.
No, let me speak. What effect do childhood vaccines have on children? What effect do flu vaccines have on people in terms of their health and in terms of even their, just as important to the cult, their psychology. If you get a developing immune system in a child and you're already bombarding it, it's still developing, you're bombarding it with an absolute assault of a chemical attack over and over and over and over again. Do you think that's good for the immune system, or do you think the immune system's going, I'm coming out with my hands up, I can't cope with this? You know, and the point is, you have to look at many different manifestations of the effects of vaccines. I mean, there was a Japanese study which listed all the elements, all the effects, the health effects of the COVID fake vaccine. And it was vast. And most of them, you would never say, that's connected to the vaccine, because it would not even seem to be so. So you're introducing this chemical cocktail over and over and over again into a developing immune system and children, etc. Do you think that happens in isolation? Do you think that there's no effect, not least cumulative effect of all of it, upon a child's immune system, and you can skew it for life as a result, where not only, like I say, are you affecting people's health, you're actually affecting them psychologically as well. I mean, you know, you take chemical compounds into the body, and many of them absolutely are admitted to affect your psychology and the ability of your brain to process information. How does anybody know what this absolute onslaught, this chemical onslaught on children has on their psychology, never mind their health? You don't know that.
Look, we agree that vaccines are bad. The point that I'm making is that California, just as an example, California, because I live in California, using it as an example, not to cherry pick it, but it's where I live. In California, the schools have had vaccine requirements for over 100 years, David. Over 100 years. I just did a search on Claude and I'm surprised. It says the short answer, California has had school vaccination requirements for well over a century, dating to the late 1800s, although the exact first date depends on how you count. Okay, so we're looking at something, this requirement to be vaccinated in order to participate in society has existed in California for over 100 years. So saying that this is a conspiracy to inject people, this has been happening for over 100 years. This is not something that's new.
Mate, how far does the conspiracy go back? Did it start 5 years ago? Did it start with COVID? How far does it go back, mate?
You tell me. You're the conspiracy expert. When did the conspiracy start, and what is the goal of the conspiracy?
Okay. Well, the goal's unfolding before our eyes. It's ultimately to fuse the human brain with, and this is just one level of it, to fuse the human brain with artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence becomes the human mind, the human perceptual processes, and the human emotional responses. That's where we're going. And I've been saying this for decades before all this stuff started happening, in which that is unfolding, and why AI is now taking the freaking world over. Because if you have AI control, that can be orchestrated from a few points, ultimately a central point, if you do it right, and you are controlling the whole of human society via artificial intelligence. And that's not only me saying that, that's the freaking goal that's becoming blatantly bloody obvious. It's AI this, AI that, AI the other. How did I know that, Steve, way back when no one was talking about it? How did I know that? How did I write that in my books, that this is the plan and this is what's coming? You see, people have said to me, did the future? And I say, I haven't. What I've done over this nearly 40 years is to uncover a plan for humanity of complete human control, not least through AI now and a digital system. And it's a plan. Now, if you uncover the plan and you communicate the plan, this is what is planned, which is what I've been doing all these years, then if nothing intervenes to stop the plan unfolding, you are predicting the future, but you're not predicting the future that has to happen. You're predicting the future that this plan wants to happen. And unfortunately, and it is unfortunately, it's unfolding as I said it would, and because that intervention has not come yet. And I just hope that at some point it will, and people will open their minds to the fact that actually it's not just a tiny conspiracy we're dealing with, it's a vast one, a global one and beyond global, actually. And so if you are able to uncover the plan, you can predict the future, which is why uncovering the plan of AI allowed me to say this is what's planned in terms of AI, and hey, bloody presto, that's exactly what's unfolding. But it's not a conspiracy; it's all a coincidence.
Okay, so let's talk about and I want to bring on Jessica in a couple of minutes, but I have one last question, which is Moderna. What is the evidence that Moderna had a vaccine waiting on the shelf when SARS-CoV-2 was sequenced? My understanding, David, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is that Moderna did not have a vaccine ready to go for SARS-CoV-2 until it was publicly sequenced. And then they used the public sequence of the virus in order to create the first batches of vaccine. So if you have evidence that Moderna actually had the sequence of SARS-CoV-2 before it was publicly released, and they had a vaccine for it on the shelf before the public release of the SARS-CoV-2 genetic sequence, I would like to see that, because what we know is that in the Moderna patent, there was a sequence that was identical to SARS-CoV-2, which means that they were using some material that was common, and in fact, probably the same sort of research material that started this whole cascade of the Wuhan Institute of Virology and escape from the Wuhan Institute. But the actual sequence of SARS-CoV-2 wasn't developed. My understanding is that they did not have, that Pfizer didn't have it and Moderna didn't have it, a vaccine on the shelf that had that sequence in it prior to the public sequencing of the virus. Am I wrong?
Tell me how it was sequenced and where the sequence came from.
I believe it was there were several labs that sequenced it simultaneously. Why don't we bring on Jessica, because that's more of her domain, and she's good friends with Kevin McKernan. But it was sequenced in. I think there was a Chinese paper that sequenced it, but it was also the sequence was replicated in the U.S. as well. But Jessica, what's your answer to that?
Well, I'll answer, but I have a lot of notes that I made. I'm a little confused because I think you guys are basically in agreement with most things, but the sequence, who cares who sequenced it? The sequence came from the virus, the SARS-2 virus that was made in a lab. So that's where it originated.
Anyone can sequence it. Right, anyone can sequence it.
Right, but that couldn't happen before the virus was made. So that wasn't the reason why these so-called vaccines, these gene-based therapies, weren't necessarily at the ready. That happened when the LNP problem got solved. And that happened simultaneously between Pfizer and Moderna when they both solved this ionizable cationic lipid problem, which is that's both still nonsense, because you can't find a safety data sheet that doesn't state that the cationic lipids that they use, the SM102 and the ALCO315 or whatever it's called, are for use in humans or animals. It states on the safety data sheet, don't use this in animals or humans. It's for lab use, bench use only. So like they solved the problem because they had to, because my opinion, and I'd love to get David's feedback on this, is that the whole pandemic was set up as a segue to usher in the age of gene-based therapies. The whole point of it was to normalize this shit. Like, just so that you know, David, I analyzed the vaccine adverse event reporting system database from the US. That's kind of how people know me. And the reason I started doing that was exactly what you said, because when I'm an immunologist, I study zoonotic pathogens for a living. When I started hearing them talk about a one-shot solution across all demographics, no matter what, and then they started mandating it, I was like, hell no, there's something else going on here. This isn't about a zoonotic pathogen. That was evident if you just went outside and watched the behavior of the riot cops. This was about a system of control being put into place.
Exactly.
And it was beautiful. And just, you guys were just saying, like, I wrote down here, the situation we're in now is perfectly ripe for the plan, if there is one, to play out. Because we have normalized, for all intents and purposes, COVID vaccines are safe and effective. They're not, they're neither. They're not safe, they're not effective. But, you know, you can't get that through to a lot of people. Even to this day, they have no idea that anything bad happened. And so when, because it's now happening, the flu vaccines, you guys were talking about those are gene-based now. It's the same platform as the COVID shots. And this is the point of ushering in this new technology, and it was experimental, and normalizing it is because that's going to be the plug-and-play system for all future vaccines. It's cheap. They don't have to do frickin' trials, not that they did any good ones before. And it's the monster industry taking over and not giving people a choice. And the other reason I think this all happened, it's not just about the virus or the vaccine. The system of control is more so about the digitization of the human. That's what those stupid green passports were for.
100%.
That's what the CBDCs are going to be for. They're going to conglomerate all of your personal, you can see it everywhere now, this age verification crap that's happening across the board on all apps. It's like they're collecting all of your data that they have no right to ask for, and you don't know you're signing off on it in those new terms and conditions. You have no idea that you've signed away your phone number, your email, your driver's license, your whatever the hell they ask you for, that they have no right to ask you for. It's all going to be accumulated. And when they usher in the digital ID, it's all going to be on that thing, on that digital ID. And then, because it's government controlled, you're not going to have any choice. If they decide that you've done something wrong by mistake, they can cut off your bank account like they did in Canada to the truckers. They can cut off your, they can ruin your life, basically. So that's what I think it's all about. But I wanted to ask you, David, sorry about that long rant.
Okay. I would
I-
just say very quickly, I agree with absolutely everything you've just said. But the question then is, how was it orchestrated? How were all these different elements orchestrated? Was it just Tony Fauci?
no,
I
no,
mean,
no.
how was it orchestrated? It was orchestrated through this web, which has no borders. It doesn't have a border. That's the borders of public consumption. It doesn't have borders, and therefore it's able to orchestrate global situations, national situations, yes, in various situations that require manipulation of the national level, but globally, it's able to orchestrate something like COVID and the answer to it, the fake vaccine, because of the way it works and the way it operates and the way the web is centrally orchestrated.
Yeah, but that's just global. That's just global health response. That is the
No,
responsible.
that's your opinion.
If you
its
but if you
global
were
response.
but David, if you were a responsible country, and let's say that everybody else is.
You mean there's such a thing?
Yeah, let's assume for a second that you're a responsible country, or you actually think that you want to be a responsible country in terms of public health response. What you would do is you would coordinate with other countries for something of this global pandemic scale, so that everybody would have a coordinated global response to a public health emergency. This is what you would do if there was no conspiracy at all, because that would be the right thing to do if you were an honest country and honestly dealing with a global pandemic. And,
so what you do is you're a national government and you just do what everyone else does. You don't think for yourself and decide how you're going to respond to something. You just do it. Because the global level, like the World Health Organization, this Rockefeller created in 1948, Gates funded and run, Tedros Gofford World Health Organization, because they tell you what to do. You just bloody do it all over the world.
People are like sheep. Absolutely. They don't independently think, because if they do, they'll be opening themselves up for criticism. That's very normal, to not oppose the so-called legitimate authorities. But that doesn't mean that there's a conspiracy to kill people or control people or create AI or that there was a world conspiracy to use this pandemic as a way to usher in these mRNA vaccines. It was more because the mRNA technology basically provided a way out for public health officials, because you could rapidly develop a vaccine faster using this technology than using previous technologies. Okay, that's a fact.
It just happened to cause enormous fatalities and destroy the health of even more. Just a coincidence, nothing to worry about.
And yet today, if we were to look at the data on the impact of the COVID vaccine on countries, we would find that there are studies that would claim that the COVID vaccines have saved millions of lives, and there are studies that will claim the opposite. And the fact is that observational studies are really, really bad, because the people behind these studies do not properly account for all of the confounders and all the methodological errors in these studies. And so we have bad observational studies showing one thing, and we have bad observational studies showing another thing. And there isn't a way to really tell the difference until we have randomized trials and get to the truth, because I would claim that certain analyses are correct and certain analyses are not correct, and there will be people who will disagree with that. But the point is that it is not obvious from looking at the data by any stretch that the COVID vaccines have killed enormous numbers of people, nor is it obvious that the COVID vaccines have saved lots of people. The truth is probably somewhere in between, and the fact is that we don't have the sufficient set of skills and methodologies to be able to find out the truth. And a perfect example of that is this latest thing by Alex Berenson, the story on the this vaccine that was used, and they claimed, oh, this provides a 50% benefit, and they did an RCT on it, and they found it was not beneficial at all, which demonstrated two things. It demonstrated, number one, that observational studies, which is everything that we have for COVID is observational studies, that observational studies can be very wrong, even though people are confident that they're right. And it also showed that when health authorities are confronted with evidence showing that they are wrong, the health authorities do not change their minds, which is absolutely horrible.
Amen. Well, I would like to add, if I may, I've been spending the last few days responding to a movie that I saw on X, which is it's basically a call to action to show the placebo side of the data in the original hepatitis B vaccine rollouts back in the late 70s, early 80s, when HIV/AIDS was starting to become a problem. And I found out through combing through all of these research papers, because that's how I approach things, that it is in fact true that the seminal paper that basically says that HIV came from somewhere else and it started spreading through America because of, the gays, let's just say it how Fauci said it, this is the reason why we had the HIV/AIDS epidemic in America. However, in this graph, it's figure 1 in one of these seminal papers, Hessel paper, there's no distinguishing between, first of all, you have to know that the rates of HIV were going up during the trial. It's not known in which group, the placebo or the vaccine group, those rates were going up in. And so if those rates were going up in the vaccine group, not in the placebo group, the story completely turns on its face. I know that people need a lot more background to understand what I'm saying, but the point is that the CDC, it is the CDC, are withholding data that belongs to the public. And if they revealed this data to the public and perhaps proved, because it would prove, that the original hepatitis B vaccines were contaminated with HIV and seeded a population of HIV positive people, the shit would hit the fan. So I think that we do have the skills, Steve, to show with bench work, with peer-reviewed studies, whatever methodology you want to use, like everything that we need to know that has anything to do with the truth of the matter, but we're suppressed. I mean, I'm still having papers retracted. The good scientists who are doing the honest work can't get their frickin' words out, to the scientific community. Like we're just, we're the fringe.
Who's
So
orchestrating that then?
It's like
Who's
the hooker.
orchestrating that? Another one, add to the list.
Well, look, so here's Brian Hooker just published this great paper where they analyzed the data from they got the data from one state. I forget the name of the state, but they got the official data from a state, and they showed that everybody who got vaccinated, and these are childhood vaccines. They're looking at 2 months old and 4 months old kids. They showed that everyone who got vaccinated, they looked at 59 different subgroups. They showed that everybody who got the vaccine died more. All 50, there's like 58 or 59 subgroups, everybody, every way they cut the data, everywhere they sliced and diced the data, they found higher mortality if you got the vaccine. Okay? Doesn't matter what race you are, doesn't matter whether you're male or female, you got the vaccine, your mortality was higher. Okay? This was a very clear signal. It was very large, and it was statistically significant in certain cases as well. And all of the diagrams that they show you, where they have the lines for the confidence intervals, they're all like only maybe touching the one line, okay, meaning that they're all either statistically significant or almost statistically significant. Huge effect. Preprints.org retracted it.
What?
Off of they took it off of preprints.org because they said, well, this could be misinterpreted by people, and could cause harm because this might be misinterpreted. This is the reason that they gave for pulling this.
But this is the playbook that David's talking about. Like, it is a freaking playbook, man. Like, one of the things I learned by going back decades, David, I have a master's in immunology. I studied HIV immunopathogenesis, so I know I've been doing this a long time. Like, man, Fauci he was flown in on Air Force Two during one of these seminal meetings when they were just having a panel discussion about the people who were they had AIDS and they were HIV negative, I believe it was. Don't quote me on that. There was some discrepancy, and he was flown in to say this is utter bullshit. HIV causes AIDS. This is the way it is, and that was it. It was shut down. And he did the same thing during COVID. He's the science. He's the authority. Never mind the fact that he changed his goddamn mind every 2 seconds about what he was saying. Oh, yes, natural immunity is the best. No, natural immunity doesn't work. You have to get shots even if you got COVID. Yeah, you wear a mask. Don't wear them. I mean, wishy-washy. And so, in my opinion, this is all part of what's been snowballing, I would say, from some kind of seed, idea that was probably formulated maybe 100 years ago, maybe longer. I don't know what the source is, but man, did they take advantage of this current situation. If nothing else, if they didn't plan it, they took advantage of it. I mean,
well, the thing is about exactly what you're talking about is we go back to what I said a little while ago. The whole foundation of the conspiracy to enslave humanity and direct humanity in the desired direction, is control of perception. Because from perception comes behavior. If you want to get people's behavior, you get their perception. And where does perception come from? It comes from information received, whether it's the 10 o'clock news or a newspaper article, they still exist, or on the internet, whatever, or it may be a personal experience, whatever. You're taking that information and you are forming a perception of a situation from it. So this is what censorship is all about. Censorship is about suppressing information and opinion that would get people or give people the opportunity anyway to see a situation differently from the way this cult wants you to see it. So, for instance, during COVID, once I started talking about what COVID was and how the fake vaccine was coming to justified by it, I was off every platform you could imagine. All of them gone. YouTube, Facebook, all of them, Twitter, all of them gone. Because instead of having the free flow of information where people have the official version of something and the other version of something or other versions of something, that gives people an opportunity to maybe think, well, actually, this makes more sense than what the officials are telling me. You don't want that. You need to control perception. You need to dominate the information that people receive from which those perceptions are formed. And this is why, as you rightly are talking about, you have the suppression of scientific and medical knowledge and opinion that is at odds with the official story. That's why you have it. Control perception, you control behavior.
Yeah, and this isn't new. I mean, they used to do that back in the day with the newspapers and, you know, the clicky TVs that we used to have. Now it's like this, you know, digital monster where everybody's connected 24/7. And yeah, it's hard to it's hard for me to imagine where we're going to be in 5 years, man. Because when AI starts integrating into all of these data, and somebody presses, you know, the you know, I'm being, you know, funny right now, but when they press the upload button, I mean, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen then, because I'd be really, really interested to talk to you in the future about the perception and behavior thing, because I'm studying more about brain chemistry now, and both from a scientific and a spiritual point of view. And I mean, mind control as well. I'm looking into that as well. I mean, you know, probably like book
Well,
or
what is mind
book
control? Mind control, perception
alteration
control.
of
They're the
perception.
same
Yeah.
thing. You know,
Yeah.
very quickly, I studied from 1996 right across the millennium mind control, MKUltra and its offshoots and the techniques. And when COVID broke, I saw the same technique.
Yeah.
I want to step in because I want to be mindful of your time, David. And I know we're running a little long here. I did want to follow up on Moderna. I know this because I'm working on a film about the first year of COVID. And the CEO of Moderna on January 15th, 2020, went on Kramer and announced that they had this new mRNA technology and that it would be coming out. And that's pretty early in the January 15, 2020, for him to come out on a propaganda network where Kramer does financial news and announce mRNA and that they were going to have a vaccine for COVID with this breakthrough technology.
And then the question is, how long was it in existence before it was made public that it was in existence?
Exactly. Yeah, apparently they've been using self-amplifying mRNA in pigs since 2018. And the COVID application, like they with Pfizer, I know the Pfizer story. They started trialing the BNT 162b1 and 2 and the self-amplifying products at the same time. So, you know, like that's for the SARS insert gene, but like how this is what really bugs me about this shit. It's like because of the censorship and suppression, like I really want to know, I want to see the data. I want to know how long this technology has been not only being developed, but how long has it been deployed? And how the hell would we ever find that out anyway? I mean, not even the people who are giving the injections know what's in the syringe. Like none of the vets know that they're giving self-amplifying tech to their pets right now in the rabies shots. They don't know. So therefore the owners don't know. It's
exactly.
crazy.
And I'll tell you from my research over the years is that you have apparently a cutting edge of technology in all its different forms, including you call vaccines technology, I suppose. You have a cutting edge of technology in the public arena, but it's light years behind what's in the secret projects and the underground bases where all this stuff goes on. And what happens is they have a sequence in which they play out this technology, which already exists, into the public arena in a sequence that gives the impression that it is organic in nature when it's actually sitting there waiting to be played at a certain point in the sequence. And so the mRNA came out at that point in the sequence. how long they've known, and just going on when it was publicly announced is irrelevant, because it's all going on in the background before it becomes publicly announced. And whatever the cutting edge is in the public arena, it's light years behind what's coming. And you're absolutely right. When you say about how long have they been using it or whatever. I mean, I've heard people. I've done it myself. They say, oh well, they've got a microphone and they can hear what you're saying, and they can then give you adverts as a result of what you're talking about. Of course, there's endless examples of that. But more than that, I've been looking at this over quite a while now. The number of people, including those around me, who are in a room alone, they're talking to nobody, but they think of something. Like, for instance, someone who'd been used to horses as a young girl and was very confident with horses. She was sitting there thinking, I wonder if I went back to horses that I'd still be as confident, or whether I'd be nervous or whatever. And then up comes an advert, literally minutes later, on her phone, trying to sell her something to do with having confidence in riding horses. Now, that's a thought. It's not a word. It wasn't said openly. It was the thought. And I've had loads and loads of examples of these I've picked up over the years, particularly recent years, and more recently, especially. So here's something where you're thinking something and an advert comes up relating to what you're thinking. And these are really kind of obscure things. It's not like, they're regular kind of adverts. They are very specific adverts, very specific to the thoughts that you've been having. And what technology is actually being used and played out to manipulate perception, for instance, that we have no idea about, because the cutting edge of accepted technology is always light years behind what's actually possible.
Yeah, I agree. And it sounds, I've heard these stories as well. I haven't met anyone or experienced it, but like it sounds like it has something to do with reading brainwave patterns. Like that's where it's going in the future.
Exactly.
Like, it's exactly what you just said. It's like if it's going there in the future, it might have already happened. I mean, I don't want to get too like, time dilated, but yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you my experience though. I started up Facebook again for some stupid reason recently. I don't know, I was looking for something to sell, and I deleted the account almost right away because the algo, I'm telling you, Steve, I'm telling you, this is what happened. I would be scrolling through looking at pictures, or I wouldn't click on the videos. And it was, I swear to God, I'm very logical. I'm very skeptical. I'm very I'll shut you down, whatever. It must have been scanning my eyes somehow, or something was going on where it was so fast. It was faster than my scrolling, that the things that were coming up in the feed that I couldn't see yet were related to something that maybe my eyes hovered on a little bit longer, if you know what I'm saying. It was almost impossible for me to believe what was happening. And I did experiments. I was like, no, it's just in my head. I'm just imagining things. And I'm like, no. If I keep my eyes for 3 seconds on something rather than one, the feed below that I cannot see is all related to that shit. It was wild. And I'm like, okay, this is spooky. I'm out. I can't do it.
I had one of these this weekend. My son, who's working at a concert venue nearby, I was having a glass of rosé with him at dinner. He wasn't having it. And he was talking about the wine that they serve at this concert venue. He didn't name the brand of wine, but he was saying, "Oh, we have one brand that does these 4 different wines. He went over to watch some television and an ad popped up and he goes, "Dad, come over here." And it was an ad for the wine that they were serving at the concert venue, even though we didn't name the brand and he had never seen an ad on his feeds for any alcohol.
Did you buy the wine with a credit card or cash?
Well, I wasn't buying anything. It was
Oh,
we just having a conversation in my house, and our iPhones are nearby, and I do have a smart TV, and they were listening in and gave Jesse, my son, I just gave his name up, but the brand through an ad that we didn't even mention the name of it.
but where
just
did
that
the wine originally come from? I'm trying to follow back, like I'm trying to trace back how it
we
would have.
mentioned the venue nearby, and so somehow the algorithms found the venue and the wine they serve.
Oh, they're so
And fed it
fast.
to us.
Oh, these
It
And that was
guys
within
crazy.
within
So,
5, 10
so,
minutes
so
of us having the
Jessica,
conversation.
there's a simple way for you to figure out whether this is happening or not, because I would claim that what you're seeing was a coincidence and was not, but it's so simple, Jessica. Create 2 versions of yourself or have 2 different people and have them look at different parts of the screen and focus on different parts of the screen and see if they get different results.
Well, I
Scrolling,
can't because I'm
scroll,
never going back on Facebook.
but fine, don't do it for yourself, Jessica. Have
Oh, I
have
see.
2 people, show them exactly the same, have them exactly scroll the exact same thing on the 2 screens, but have person 1 looking at one side of the screen and person 2 only looking at the opposite side of the screen.
But how would
I
I
will,
have
I
two
will,
people?
I will guarantee you that they will get exactly the same result, regardless of where people are looking.
All right. I'm not saying you're wrong. You might be absolutely right. I don't know how I would make 2 versions of myself, but
I
it
need to
was spooky
release.
enough to oh, sorry.
You
Yes,
just
we have
have, you
to.
just have
Okay.
2 people,
I need
one.
I
So,
need to
Okay.
let David go. So I know
Yeah,
we're
well, I
past
just want to
time.
say finally, the most rampant disease that pervades almost the entirety of humanity currently, although it is changing, for which there is no vaccine, and that is naivety.
Hmm.
Human naivety. That's the human disease which allows the few to control the many and always has. And until we break that sequence, they'll go on doing it. And I'll tell you now, where it's planned to go between now and 2030 doesn't bear thinking about. And it's something that when you have something in your mind, like there is no conspiracy, then you'll find lots of reasons to explain why there's no conspiracy. But if you look at it from another point of view, like I'm just going to look at the evidence, which is all in my books endlessly, then you'll realize actually either there is a conspiracy or coincidences are just part of human life on a scale we have never even believed possible. Conspiracies. No, it's a coincidence. Enough coincidences, and you got a conspiracy, because they're not coincidences. Do some coincidences happen? Yes. Does it happen on the scale that we're talking about in terms of the way humans are manipulated and directed? Absolutely not. But then people will have to make their own minds up.
I want to
Yeah.
share your latest book, David, with our audience, The Roadmap, Escaping the Maze of Madness. If you want to dive deeper into, this is the latest one of, as David mentioned, of dozens of books. And there it is, The Roadmap, Escaping the Maze of Madness. David, if our audience wants to continue following your work, can you share what's the best way to follow your work?
It's davidicke.com is my website. And we also have a media platform called iconic.com. where we do, video films and original films and news shows and it's I also post a little bit on X most days, so that's where they can get me.
Great. And Jessica, thank you so much for jumping in here and contributing to the conversation. Steve, anything you want to finish off with David or Jessica before I end this segment?
Yeah, I just want to say that I agree. There are a lot of these coincidences that people ignore. There are people that die shortly after their COVID vaccine. There are children that get vaccines and die 2 hours. There are twins that get vaccinated and they die 2 hours later. And it's clearly caused by the shots. Okay. And the medical community just is trained that vaccines are safe and they ignore the harm. But this isn't a conspiracy among doctors to allow these bad medical interventions. This is something that the doctors are trained to think one way that causes them to ignore these coincidences like vaccines and autism and vaccines and poor health and all that people don't see it. And in fact, it takes a life-changing event. Like I was recently posting on X where I said vaccines cause SIDS, and a mom posted that my daughter was 2 months old. She got the shots and died 2 days later. These are not coincidences. This is cause and effect. And the medical community has simply just ignored this stuff for decades. It doesn't mean that there's a mass conspiracy controlling people. It means that there's a groupthink process that people have become accustomed to, and people then trust authorities. And that's the big problem that we have here.
What incentivizes these authorities to hide the freaking data and to lie? Like, that's my question.
Yeah. So for example, the autism study that William Thompson was involved in, the authorities told him, kill the data that relates vaccines and autism so we can publish a clean paper.
Tell him that? Like, there had to be
his bosses, because the bosses have been trained to parrot a narrative, and the bosses don't want to be embarrassed saying, oh, we messed up, so don't trust us anymore. Here's the truth now. People don't like to backpedal on stuff that they've said, okay? And Trump is a perfect example of that. Does Trump ever backpedal on anything that he's said that has been proven to be incorrect? No, he never backpedals because he feels that impacts his reputation. This is human nature we're talking about. This is not a conspiracy. This is human nature. Is they don't want to destroy the credibility of their institution. And this groupthink just creates this situation where we have this inconvenient study where Marcus Zervo says, I'll do the study and I'll prove to you that you're wrong. And he proves that Del Bigtree is right. So what does he do? He silences his study. He self-censors his study. Why does he do that? He is not controlled by anyone specifically, but he basically doesn't want to have his career destroyed by his peers because he went against the grain, okay? And it's going against the grain, that going against the scientific consensus is what gets people into trouble here. And we are, as a society, we are not tolerant of that. That is the big problem here. It's not some conspiracy from to control people. It's basically this sort of mentality about scientific consensus, and that is a huge problem, that we don't allow people to deviate from that. What we do is we censor these people, we take away their license to practice medicine, we remove their papers, and we do everything possible because they're deviating from the norm, and that's the fundamental problem here.
Well,
Like,
there's a hell of a lot of coincidences there, Steve. Who sets the norm?
yeah,
Who sets the norm that everyone
what I want to know.
repeats throughout the pyramid of society? Who sets the norms? Who decides what the norms are that everyone else in the hierarchy then repeats and censors anyone else that is challenging the norms?
And has the power to censor. I mean, this is
Right.
journals. This is the
absolutely.
high authorities, and if there is a masterminder, and it's kind of coincidental that every single country went into lockstep, and they're doing it again for this age verification crap. I lost my thought, but
It's bad for me. It's bad. It's scientific studies that are bad, that people don't pick apart properly through the peer review process, because lots of shit gets through the peer review process, and that just creates this false sense of scientific certainty. And then anyone who then goes up against this false wall of scientific certainty gets shut down. That is such a fundamental problem here, that the scientific community is not tolerant at all of people who disagree with them. Solve that problem, okay, and we will move society ahead light years. Okay.
Well, move the needle, but they're not mutually exclusive.
Sorry, you go ahead.
I was just going to throw in, like, Steve, I completely agree with you. You're absolutely right. But I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think it's both. And I have to agree that the question that David asked is, well, I want to know too, like, who creates these norms? And I would call the level of denial that so many people are still in brainwashing. And if it's actually brainwashing, like still believing, the clear lies, like they've come out and admitted that what they've said is not true, like the COVID shots stop transmission, whatever you want to pick out. It's just, who's creating?
I think so.
There has to be a creator.
It's inertia. It's inertia. It gets created it's created a little at a time. That creates this wall that then you can't defeat. It's like, do vaccines cause autism? So nobody knew. Then there were studies that came out that showed that it didn't, because they were funded by the pharmaceutical companies. And so the pharmaceutical companies have this vested interest to fund these studies that are bullshit studies that show no harm. And then you create this wall that then people who then oppose the consensus are then
But how do you explain that it goes beyond the vaccine world?
I need to end the episode.
Oh.
I really
this is so good.
Can I just say one last thing here?
Yes.
You got the norms, right? You set the norms, and everyone else conforms to the norms. And then anyone that steps outside of the norms has consequences. The system which sets the norms give consequences for people who step outside the norms, like you lose your job if you talk against vaccines and you're a doctor or whatever. So it's a self regulating system which suppresses and kicks out anyone that challenges the norms that are set. And I'll just finish with this one question, Steve. How many of my books have you read?
None.
Thank you. Now, that's what research is all about. It's looking at what someone's saying in detail before you make this declaration. There is no conspiracy. There bloody is, mate. And for 36 years, I've been uncovering it. And between now and 2030, it's going to go into overdrive.
And I have to say that David's been right on a lot of shit. So it's kind of compelling.
I know I would be open to a part 2, because I wish we could dive into organizations like the Bilderberg Group and the Club of Rome and the Council on Foreign Relations, and go deep. I'm all for it, because we haven't
even talked about the Lacerda files.
No, that'll
Yeah,
have to
that
be for
too.
another episode.
All those
David,
organizations are strands in the same web. And if you
exactly.
go deep enough, because it's very compartmentalized, if you go deep enough in these organizations, you'll find they answer to the same masters. Whereas people that go to the Bilderberg group and then go a few times and then stop going, or they'll go to the Council on Foreign Relations or whatever. They're there to have their perception manipulated because of the positions in society that they have. But the inner core of these organizations, they answer to the same masters. Then most of the people in the organizations don't know that.
Yeah. Well, David, thank you so much for your generosity of your
No
time
problem.
and fantastic conversation. Jessica, again, thank you for showing up. And,
Oh man, I had a blast. Thanks for letting me come on. I want to do it again.
It was great.
Part two.
All right. We're going to switch over to the live segment of our program now. So have a great evening, David and Jessica and Steve. We'll see you on the live side. Thank you.
Cheers, mate. It's been a pleasure, real pleasure. Thank you.
And we are back live, and I want to welcome back Steve Kirsch, founder of the Vaccine Safety Research Foundation. How are you after a day away from that interview, Steve? Oh, and you are muted. Let me get you to unmute there. Still.
All right.
Okay, there you are.
All right, I'm back. Yep. So
Yeah, I actually thought one of the most interesting things about that conversation is how much you and David actually agreed on. You both agreed on the COVID response causing enormous harm and censorship, and the vaccine causing great harm and dissenting doctors being punished. The disagreement really wasn't about the facts. It was about why those things happened. And I heard two different explanations, David's being that there is intentional coordination behind these institutions, and yours is human incentives, bureaucracy, careerism, and groupthink naturally produce the same outcome. Is that a fair way to describe where you two part company?
Yeah, I think so. And I asked him for the telltale signs that can differentiate it, right? What is the evidence that can differentiate the two hypotheses? And he said, read my book. And I found that not very compelling. So I'll say that.
Mm-hmm. And so then at some point, somebody does have to define what's considered legitimate science. Who comes up with the consensus? Who is the one that decide that groupthink is acceptable thinking?
Well, I don't think groupthink is acceptable thinking. I think that science should be based on what the data says, and we shouldn't be censoring people who disagree with us. We should be embracing those people and trying to get to the truth.
So who would
current scientists disagree with that. They think that way better to censor people. Let's take away their license to practice medicine, and let's fire them from their jobs and let's destroy their careers if they don't agree with the consensus. I think that's a huge problem.
And where do you think those orders are coming from? Because we know so many doctors who were canceled, censored, lost their licenses.
It's not orders, Livio, right? I mean, this is present in virtually everyone who disagrees with everyone who disagrees with me that I have talked to thinks that and maybe not everybody, but most people who disagree with me think I'm a menace to society. Okay. This isn't because they're controlled by some central authority and they're all robots following the instruction of this evil cabal who is orchestrating everything. No, it's because they're brought up to trust experts and to distrust people who disagree with experts. And because of that upbringing, then they have these points of view, and if you argue with them, they tend to just retreat into their point of view, and it becomes very difficult for people to be open to changing their beliefs. Now, a lot of people believe that what David said is true about, the conspiracy and so forth. And there's nothing I'm going to be able to say to convince them otherwise. And I'm resigned to that. And, I think that's the way it is. And, but it's an example of the problem that the same people who believe what David said and cannot be convinced otherwise are really exhibiting the exact same problem as the people who say that what David is saying is wrong, and he's a conspiracy theorist and he's, out there and wrong. And you'll never convince those people either. So we have, instead of people coming together and agreeing on what's going on, we have two different factions or more, depending on what the issue is. And it's really getting people to see there can't be two truths. There can only be one truth. And so getting people to recognize and believe that way. So, for example, is there a conspiracy? Is there a conspiracy? Or is there not a conspiracy? And maybe there's a conspiracy on this, but not on that. But, there's for most issues, there's probably a correct answer. Did the COVID vaccines save lives, or did it net kill people? And there are people on both sides of that issue. And when they come together, they simply, they don't meet in the middle. They just go right past each other and say, you're wrong, let me show you why. And what happens is that neither side gets convinced because neither side is listening to the other side.
Well, also from a media standpoint and censorship and the way the media was in lockstep, the way they reported COVID, they were reading from a script. The way organizations who actually wouldn't let me come back and work because I wouldn't get the jab and I wouldn't do a fake vaccine card. And so they all coordinated, conspired against me to not let me work, for example. And they all conspired to send a message to the public using the legacy media to tell them to be very afraid. Is that a conspiracy, or are they just all sort of coincidentally all doing the same thing?
No, it's not a coincidence. They're all acting in concert with each other and in cooperation with each other and in communication with each other and in coordination with each other. No question about it. But is that a conspiracy that is directed from a small number of people who are saying, hey, this is how we want it to happen? I don't think so. I think it's human nature that you want to do all of us want to do the right thing. All of us want, or I'd say most of us want to save lives, for example. We want to do things that save lives. And people are conditioned to listen to the authorities for when the authorities are saying, hey, the way to save lives is for us to vaccinate everybody with this new experimental vaccine that we've tested on a few people. And it seems to be safe, but we haven't tested it long term. But trust us, safe and effective. A lot of people bought that, including me. Mm-hmm. I got 2 jabs. I totally regret taking the jabs. I don't know anyone. But look, there's some people who took the jabs and don't regret it.
I know people who are still taking the jab.
I know a guy who was perfectly healthy, took the jabs, and he's health-wise, he's a mess right now, and he doesn't attribute it to the vaccines. And he has these conditions that would very rarely be present in someone his age, and they happened rapidly after he got his vaccines, and he was a believer in getting all the vaccines, and he still doesn't see it.
Yeah, I know people like that as well.
Tragic.
One of the things
But
that
the
I
point
have,
but the point there is that people's beliefs are really hard to change. And he would tell me, Steve, you should get the vaccine because it's going to save your life.
Mhm.
And so the mainstream media is basically saying, hey, we got to do the responsible thing for America. Where the experts tell us that vaccines will save lives and will get us out of this mess. And we don't want to be in lockdown anymore. And we're tired of all the restrictions and the masking and all this, and we want to get our lives back. So let's all work together to educate the population on the benefits of vaccination. Like that's my theory for why these people did this, because they're doing it for what they believed was the right thing to do. And they also believe that the right thing to do was to silence people, right? The Biden administration was calling on YouTube and all these other social media, Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and all that. I got banned for life on LinkedIn
now that was all,
because I'm a threat.
yeah.
They think I'm a threat. They think I am basically killing people by saying that these vaccines are not safe.
Well,
By
in
telling the
actuality,
truth.
you're saving people. They're the ones, whether it's intentional or not, are
Well, that's what
killing
you
people.
think, Livio.
Of course.
but I think the most stunning thing, and it's really coming to a head now, is that Brian Hooker study. Because Brian Hooker got the data from the state of Louisiana, and this is like a state giving children's health defense data. I mean, that's like that's an oxymoron. That's like those two things don't go together. Those are contradictions. And so they managed to get some data out of the state. They only could get death data for kids who died under age 3. So they figured out a clever way to analyze and do a study on that data. And they did. And they found that in the 55 subgroup analysis that they did, all 55 showed a mortality signal for those who got the vaccine. So how do you explain such consistency? Well, the attacks, and I have looked at the attacks and the explanations because Real Truther is out there trying to dispute this, and people on my Substack are claiming, oh, no, you've got it wrong again, Steve, and so forth. And they say that, look, you need to look at the compute the percentage of people in the population who died of the people alive, and you need the whole population to do that. And that's interesting. You could do that study if you had the whole data set, but they didn't. They only had people who died. So Brian did the only thing that he could do, which is a landmark study, which is well accepted in the literature. And he did the computations based on the data that he had. And the computations were astonishing. They showed that the vaccinated were worse off. So every time I try to get people to explain this result, what they do is they say, oh, he should have done it this way.
They're conspiring against Dr. Hooker.
Hello. he got this result. You need to explain with a perfectly legitimate methodology, he got this result. And what they're saying is, no, he should have calculated this, and he didn't. So therefore, his study is nonsense. No, it's not. He did exactly what he was supposed to do with the data. And you see, you can't convince anyone that they're wrong on this, even though it's obvious that they're wrong. And in fact, I went to ChatGPT and I went to Claude. Alter AI got it right instantly. I went to ChatGPT and Claude on this, and I thought, they'd get it right too. I was surprised. They said, no, he should have done it this way. And then I had to guide them to, yeah, but he didn't have the data. So he analyzed it this way. Explain the data. And so after about an hour of arguing with AI agreed. Okay, there's a real signal there. And yeah, you're right. You can't explain it other than the vaccine caused the increase. I said, yeah, well, that's what I've been saying all along. But you see, it took me an hour to convince ChatGPT of that. And ChatGPT is supposed to be, fairly neutral and open and not subject to all these, human being kinds of biases that we have. So anyway, sorry, being long-winded, but that Hooker study, man, that is unbelievable. It's so clear. If you if you understand science and you know what you're doing, it's unbelievable. And so I went to the advisory board for preprints.org and I said, hey, why don't you just tell us what the error in the study was? I got no response. I went on I went on X, and I offered $2,000 to the first person to explain the confounder that can explain away the Hooker results. No takers. In fact, people were posting that Grok couldn't find a confounder. And when Grok can't find a confounder, everybody leaves the room. If Grok couldn't find a confounder, nobody's going to find a confounder because Grok is totally on the other side. So they can't attack this. So I offered Paul Offit $100,000 if he could explain how Hooker got the results. I'm never going to hear from Paul Offit. That's for sure.
They're conspiring against you.
No,
I mean there's a programming going on. I was gonna ask about this, but I'm gonna hand it to the first audience question because this is what I was gonna go to. Random Cool Zip asks, Steve, how do you explain Event 201?
Oh, easy. This is what a responsible government is supposed to do. They're supposed to have planning for disasters that they know are going to happen. That's exactly what they did. They did what they're supposed to do. If there's no conspiracy at all, they would be doing exactly the same thing.
Have you watched segments or any parts of Event 201?
I have seen very small segments of it. Right.
So I cut a sequence.
Is there a particular segment that you think is
I cut
revealing?
a sequence. I'm not going to share it now because the film is still in editorial, but I cut a sequence that shows the simulation that they used in Event 201 with reality, found clips from the news, and the language is almost lockstep. Everything from misinformation to vaccine hesitancy. So if they knew back then in 2019, the same thing happened with Clade X in 2017. If they knew back then all these things could happen, I would imagine if their intention was to save lives, that they would have pivoted based on their simulation. And instead, the simulation was more of a premonition or a prediction or a rules to follow when this happens. And the rules weren't really good, actually.
No, they're terrible. Right.
So why wouldn't they have corrected course?
Well, what they should have done is to say, is to put in, hey, here's the game plan. Okay, let's say it's a respiratory virus. So are we going to do lockdowns? Are we going to do masking? Are we going to try to do vaccination? There should be a game plan coming out of that.
Their game plan was how to deal with misinformation and censor people like you and me.
Okay, but see, they would do that anyway, right? Because their belief system is that the vaccines and masking and social distancing and all that stuff is good, and that will save lives. And so, and then one of the big things is to deal with people who are adverse to that and will cause people to lose lives because their objective is to save lives.
I'm going to go to the
It's
next
tot-
question.
Totally natural.
Ari Goldberg 1 asks, Steve, why should a contagious disease require police state measure? When people are sick, they stay home and don't spread the disease, right?
Yeah, well, if it was a minor disease that wasn't at risk of causing millions and millions of lives to be lost, which is what people believed for this virus, then they wouldn't be doing this. But this has been done before in history. This is not the first time that this has happened. You know, there've been they talk about these court cases and can the state mandate this? And they go back and they go back like 100 years or more into these decisions that were made decades ago. Not surprising, right? Because the state has an obligation to the people to protect the people from harm. And so the state intervenes. It's like, why are there vaccinations in California? There are vaccinations in California that's been going on for over 100 years. For over 100 years, since the early 1900s, we've had vaccinations in California. Required to attend school. Why? Because they believe that will save kids' lives. Because they're told that by by doctors. Now, is there conspiracy of doctors to say, hey, let's go, get vaccines on the schedule in California? No, the doctors are all taught in medical school the belief system that vaccines are totally safe and this is the safest intervention ever, even though they're the only ones that require liability protections, which, that's a disconnect that people should have realized, but they're taught in med schools that vaccines are perfectly safe. So,
yeah, and who funds the med schools?
Well, what Carnegie and others, sorry, the Rothschilds and whatnot. So, but those people who did that had a belief system that was, again, kind of the system, all this feedback, right? Because it's them trusting their doctors who were telling them that, hey, we should teach doctors that vaccines are safe because they're safe, right? There weren't any naysayers back then saying, oh, the vaccines are not safe. I mean, those were the outcasts back then, just like they are, it's like they still are today. So if you were a wealthy and powerful individual like Bill Gates, for example, you would go to Stanford Medical School and you would talk to the dean there and you would talk to the dean at another med school and another med school and another med school, and they would convince you that vaccines are the safest things on the planet. And so then you would say, oh, well, then I should go and devote my time to this. And that's not surprising because I was the same way. When Bill Gates became a philanthropist, it took him a while to realize that vaccines were a really good investment for his charitable dollars. He didn't realize that at the very beginning. It took him many years to figure that one out. But when he did, I actually, wrote stuff saying, I applaud Bill Gates for finally realizing that investing money in vaccines are one of the best ways from a dollar point of view, dollars invested in lives saved, to save lives. So I was drinking the Kool-Aid too myself, so I know exactly where he's coming from. I was on the same side. I was actually applauding his investment in vaccines back then, just because I didn't know any better, because that was my experience. People were just feeding me crap about how good vaccines were. And I wasn't questioning it, because what reason would I have for doubting what these doctors are saying? These are doctors. These are Harvard professors. Like, why would I even go and even do a query to find out if what they were saying is true? Like, people don't do that. That's silly. They're Harvard professors. You have to trust them. They're the experts. So that's how people, got into this mess, is to assume that these experts know what they're talking about. And most people are still where I was before I got vaccinated and before my eyes got opened when I saw all these people dying after the COVID vaccine.
Well, that leads me to an anonymous question that's asked, Steve, why would the government keep recommending COVID vaccines long after they know they are harming and killing people?
Because governments hate to admit that they got it wrong and they did stuff that was harming people. Hello, this is human nature. Everybody hates to admit they messed up. Like, so that's not surprising. It's like, why did when the CDC did this study on autism, and they found that in the black boys subgroup that the odds ratios were like 3-1. If talk about causality, man, that's a big signal. So they said to William Thompson, they said, "Hey, destroy the data. Let's have a clean study, and we won't even talk about it." And why did they do that? They weren't guided by some force from above. They were guided by, well, the CDC has told people that vaccines are safe. We don't want to create vaccine hesitancy. So let's publish a fraudulent study showing vaccines don't cause autism, even though we know that it does. It's been going on for decades. And Congress won't even investigate it after Thompson blew the whistle, and he made a public statement saying all this shit had happened. Why isn't Colleen Boyle being called into Congress to testify under oath? Yeah, drug companies paid off Congress to do that. That's why. And so the American public is clueless. The American public thinks that, oh, yeah, there was a dispute, but it got resolved, and Thompson, just disagreed and whatever. It's very clear what happened, and it's very clear that Congress basically abdicated their responsibility to investigate this and expose the corruption at the CDC. Why did Congress do that? Well, this is because they're paid off by the pharma companies to look the other way. That's corruption.
Yeah.
Right?
So I got another question that's along this lines from Blue Water Gal 8. Steve, what is the autism rate in California? How many vaccines now versus, say, 1987?
Well, the numbers it depends on how you count, but it's like, 96 or shots or so, or 96 different vaccine injections total. It may not be 96 sticks, but it's somewhere on the order of magnitude. And it was maybe like a dozen or so back in the early days. And the rates of autism, used to be like 1 in 10,000, and now they're like 1 in 10 in California for boys. And maybe it's not as high as 1 in 10, but it's it's on that order of magnitude. And that is that is just a stunning increase in autism. But people studying autism aren't allowed to explore the possibility that it might in fact be related to the vaccine. They're just their mind is closed to it. I've gone to MIT professors who study autism and go into their office and say, well, do you know it causes this, and it could be the vaccines, and it's like, I don't want to talk to you anymore.
They're programmed to not talk once they're challenged with.
Yeah, and it could be so, and I think it's because they're trained to believe that, all of these scientific studies have shown there's no link, and this guy is a whack job. And you need to get as far away from this guy as you can, as fast as you can, because he's dangerous to himself and to others.
Yeah,
and
along with
that's what that's how they're trained, and
they also don't know how to respond
do.
because they haven't read the studies. Is my belief that they just don't. So they
or they have and they don't, and they don't read it critically.
Right. Yeah.
They don't read it.
They're just doing
like
their job.
Autism in Denmark, is completely different than autism in the United States. How many people know that? Zero, close to zero. unless you've been in Denmark. You know, why do you think they did it in Denmark? They did it in Denmark because autism doesn't get diagnosed until, ages 4 or whatever. So they do an autism study for, ages under 4 years old in Denmark. Hello, like, yeah, it's a perfect perfect venue for that. That's the perfect no signal venue. But few people know that stuff because few people live in Denmark, so they don't know the differences. So people are fooled because the people in power want to make it look like they're what they've been telling the public is the truth all these years, and they don't want to get exposed. And it's amazing. It's like cigarette smoking. Like, it took 40 or 45 years before cigarette smoking, people accepted that cigarette smoking is bad for your health, causes cancer.
Right.
It was at least
They
40
moved on
years,
to the
45
food
years.
industry, the tobacco
I mean,
industry, moved to the food industry.
that's insane.
Yeah. I have a question from Tax Slave. Steve, do you think there are people who have power and money that want to depopulate the world? And if so, could they be talking to each other to manifest the depopulation?
Maybe there are all kinds of people in this world, and there might be rich and powerful people who want to depopulate the world. I haven't met one yet. Nor have we seen any smoking gun memos from any of them, or any associate, any whistleblower for any of them saying that, Gates Foundation, huge foundation, for example. Has anyone from the Gates Foundation said, "Hey, I'm not going to put up with this. This is insane. I'm going to blow the whistle on Bill Gates. I don't care if it costs me my reputation"? There's no whistleblowing on Bill Gates. I mean, he has said that vaccination is the key to overpopulation. And people misinterpret that into thinking that, oh, he knows vaccines are killing people. And so therefore his statement that vaccines are that everyone should vaccinate is basically he's admitting that he wants to kill people. But no, the reality is that if you vaccinate kids, what happens is that there are fewer deaths, and family size then doesn't have to be as large, because people have large families because they know that some of the members of the family will die. And so in order to have offspring that can support the parents when they're older, they have a lot of offspring so that there'll be some offspring alive to support the parents in their old age. And if there's vaccination, then these kids don't die, and so we don't have to have as many kids. And so it reduces population because family sizes are smaller. It's not because it's killing people, it's because it's saving people's lives, and people are making the decision not to have as many kids. But whether or not that's the theory anyway.
That was
but
his
that's
intent,
that
you're saying.
That's his intent, right? And if you do the research, you'll find out that that's what the research says. So his belief in vaccination is not guided by I want to kill people. Because look, he's funding efforts in countries to help people and to help keep people alive and healthy. Like, why would he do that if he's trying to kill people? It kind of doesn't make much sense. And so if you took the time, there's this great video on Netflix, and it goes into Bill Gates and what he's done in some countries for stuff with toilets and clean water and stuff like this, and it just gets into the stuff that he's doing, and that stuff is awesome. But this is done by a guy who's doing it because he cares about people and keeping people healthy and keeping people alive, not a guy who is trying to destroy lives and to depopulate the planet.
Well, building infrastructure.
Not that I'm a big fan of Bill Gates, by the way. I think he's wrong about vaccines, and he's not willing to go and face up to it. But I do commend him for his work. I think his heart is in the right place. but I think he's been fooled, just like Paul Offit. Like, I don't know, Paul Offit's a mystery to me. Like, he must know that vaccines are not safe, but he'd never admit it.
Oh God, no! His whole identity depends on on vaccines being safe. I have a question from Lori ABC. How do you know they are not transhuman already? And I'm not sure who Lori means by they, but how do you know they are not transhuman already, Steve?
I don't know. I don't know even know what transhuman would be. If there's is there a is there a test for that? Is there a blood test for that? Like,
Well, I guess
what is a transhuman?
David Icke mentioned that the goal is to fuse human and AI, which would be the transhuman uh, future for humanity.
What's the definition? What's the test? How do you tell how do you tell whether maybe I'm transhuman? I don't think so, but
Well, I can say the first time I really heard about it was back in 2015. I was working in virtual reality, creating content in virtual reality. And on my first project, I was informed that in the future, we will be downloading our memories into the metaverse. And this is before Facebook became Meta, before metaverse was a big thing. And it sounded Star Trek sci-fi to me at the time.
yeah,
But here we are, people first voluntarily download their memories into Facebook or all,
Sure.
but we're being now at
But
some
it's not
point,
it's not fusion. I mean, that's just
not,
recording.
not
You
yet,
know.
but right now people are giving up their thinking, their critical thinking to AI. They're using
Totally.
AI to think for them.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
are we losing our ability now to think for ourselves and then fusing into the machine some way in the future?
Um, I think yes and no, right? We are, because we're not using our brains as hard as we used to, because we don't have to, because we can ask AI to calculate all these probabilities for us and so forth, and it happens faster and better and with fewer errors than if we did it ourselves. So it's augmenting human intelligence, and some piece of us is decaying because of that. But there's another piece that also gets more developed, which is the critical thinking part of it, which is that whenever you interact with AI, you need to be like on it, because AI is going to make mistakes. And it doesn't matter whether you're coding something or whether you're asking questions about Brian Hooker's study, that you can't just go and take AI at face value today. You have to be totally on it, right? Because it can be misleading. And at first I thought, oh, hey, AI is great. So could be a trustable judge for these scientific questions, and can judge then when we have a dispute, like did the COVID vaccine save lives or not? And hey, I'm asking AI that question, and I'm not impressed with the response I get, except for Alter AI, which agrees with me. But hey, maybe I'm wrong. So AI is kind of like talking with another human being, and each person has their points of view and where they come from and how they were taught to think. And so that diversity is reflected in the diversity of AI machines. So it's like just having more friends that are maybe a little bit smarter and more analytical, and um, kind of like the Jeopardy expert being able to answer every single question instantly. And but is their thought process actually uh, going to get you to the right answer? And the answer is, who decides what is right? But
It goes
for some of
beyond
this,
that, Steve. It goes beyond that. I was talking to my son, who I referenced earlier in the recording, and I asked him about AI and how his peer group, and he's 20, he's going to be 22, uses AI. Do they use AI I said in the future, you'll be using AI to think for you and to just for every single question you have. And he said, "Oh, it's already happening. It's already
yeah,
happening.
sorry,
It's
totally.
we're already there
Oh,
for young
totally,
people. It's
totally.
every single decision an AI question for them, so they're
Yeah.
losing their ability to think for themselves.
No, well, or they're leveraging the tools that they have available to them to get the right answer on issues that are important. Now, whether AI
But they're
gives them the
smarter.
right answer, yeah,
Yeah.
but whether AI gives them the right answer or not is, that's an interesting question.
Yep. Very much so.
So it's important to include Ultra AI in your list of AIs that you consult, and if all of them agree, then probably got the right answer. But if they disagree, then you need to delve into the reasons for the disagreement.
I'm gonna add, because this real-time questions, so I'm gonna ask 2 for 1 here. Seeking Truth for Us asks Steve, it doesn't make sense to suppress early treatments if you're trying to save lives. And RK Ventures asks, so now Steve says vaccine saves lives. So funny he touts this when his own research shows it kills people. And I think he's referenced to, you talk about Bill Gates.
No, earlier, I believe that vaccines save lives because I had no reason to doubt that, because that's what the expert says. And my parents and my teachers all said you should listen to the experts. So that's how I was brought up, and that was my thinking process. And it wasn't until the the COVID vaccines that 6 years ago, I'm 70 years old. So at age 64, my eyes got opened to hey, all this stuff that I was taught to trust the experts, not true. Unfortunately, not true.
Not true. I'm looking at the chat, and I'm going to ask one more question from Benny2, I think is the handle. How about Skull and Bones, long known secret org at Yale? Both George W. Bush and John Kerry and other well-known people in power are also members. Do those secret society, those secret organizations carry any sort of conspiratorial influence, or are they just a frat and it's all?
No idea. They're secret organizations. How would I know? I'm like not a member. They're not going to tell me. Yeah, you should ask someone who is a member of the secret society what the whole deal's about. Good. Don't ask me, because I will tell you the truth, which is I don't know. I've never met anyone from that society, nor have, if I did they reveal to me what the secret is of their society? So
we don't know.
We don't know.
Well, Steve, I think it was fantastic that David Icke came on and you had this conversation. I think it was really fantastic, and maybe he'll come back and you can dive deeper into some more of the.
Well, it'll be interesting to revisit this in 3 or 4 years from now and see who was right.
Right, because he did bring up 2030, and we're in 2026, so things are going to keep shifting. And
yeah, I mean, and I would predict that things will shift slowly because, so that's kind of how history is, right? We knew vaccines caused autism 26 years ago, and still the scientific community hasn't budged an inch on that in 26 years.
They're in lockstep. Groupthink.
It's crazy. Yep. It is insane. This is why I did that study with it. I found this autism clinic that they looked at their database of parents and looked at, for the parents whose kid went from sort of normal and then did a boom, became autistic, rapid regression autism. And the parents were asked, so what happened the week before that was unusual? Like, did you go boating? Did you go fishing? Did you go to a rock concert? Like, what might have precipitated this? In half the cases, vaccine within 2 days. I think that was the number, of vaccine within 2 days. Half the cases.
No one's going to look at that.
Nope. Can't talk about it.
Can't talk about it.
Won't ever get anything published in the peer-reviewed journal on that one. I guarantee you.
That's why we need you to keep doing the work you're doing, Steve, and keep talking about it, because there's a lot of lives to be saved from these poisonous
Questions
injections.
that you are not allowed to ask.
Nope.
That's questions you are not allowed to ask, man. That is, that's when you should really pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
When your questions are not allowed to be asked and the answers are not allowed to be given to straightforward questions like the one that I posed to the autism clinic.
Yep. Yeah, I question whenever someone does not allow a question to be asked or doesn't want to answer the question.
Those people are on the wrong side of the issue.
They are. And they got some, I believe they also have something to hide when they don't want to answer questions.
Absolutely.
I want to remind everyone that VSRF is a small grassroots nonprofit, and everything we do is made possible by your support. If you're able, please consider supporting us. Text VSRF to 53555 or visit vacsafety.org/donate. And if you haven't already, please take a moment to sign our petition to appeal the 1986 National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act and share it with your friends, family, coworkers, and across your social media networks. Thank you for being part of this and for helping us continue this mission. Janet will put the link in the chat. And next week, please join us. We will welcome back Dr. Kevin McCarran and Dr. Mary Talley Bowden to VSRF Live. They'll discuss double filtration plasmapheresis, the treatment protocol currently being used in Japan that may offer hope for individuals living with debilitating COVID-19 vaccine injuries, and whether this promising therapy could one day become available in the United States. In fact, we're also planning to try to get some of the patients who have undergone the treatment as well next week. So that's going to be a very interesting episode to see how that's going along over there. And then finally, Steve, I'm going to close tonight's show. Remember the event we had in Texas, I believe it was like 3 years ago now, where Peter McCullough and MKUltra were the featured speakers. They did a presentation called VSRF's Deep in the Heart of Texas. And in the excerpt of this clip, Dr. McCullough discusses the origins of the military's pandemic prevention platform, the development of mRNA technology, and why he believes understanding that history is essential to understanding the COVID-19 response. There's a little bit of conspiratorial stuff going on in this presentation that I'm going to share because it goes back to DARPA and the military, which would need some sort of coordination and conspiring to bring these products to life. So anyway, thank you all for joining us. I know it was a marathon show, but well worth it. And have a great rest of your evening, and we'll see you next week. Thank you, Steve. We'll see you next week.
In 2012, DARPA, which is the research division of the military, started a program. It's called the Adept Protect P3 program, Pandemic Prevention Platform. Look what they proposed. They said, listen, we are going to use gene-encoded vaccines as a new category of preventive measures based on RNA or DNA, and in this approach, we will stop a pandemic within 60 days. Within 60 days, in 2012, this was started. When President Trump came out and said it's Operation Warp Speed and they're going to develop vaccines, it would have been nice if he was prepped or Anthony Fauci was prepped to say, listen, we're working on this. We've been working on this since 2012. This is not new. This isn't warp speed. This is 10 years in coming. The deception out in the open that this was rapidly developed, that there was all this stunning innovation. The contractors, Moderna got its first multi-million-dollar contract in 2013. The military works on programs, both the threat, SARS-CoV-2, and work on the answer, monoclonal antibodies and vaccines. But the military has biological threat programs. There's one for smallpox, monkeypox. There's one for anthrax. And who knows how many more programs. This was part of a program. But the military came up with the idea of messenger RNA vaccines, not Pfizer or Moderna, not Operation Warp Speed. It wasn't in response to what was, came out of Wuhan, China. This is a military program. When it was announced by Health and Human Services, Alex Azar, and the Department of Defense, that's who entered into this, ushered us into the vaccine era. The military. Emergency use authorization is a mechanism to get rapid new technology into the military. It's not a mechanism for the public. Its first application broadly to the public was with the COVID-19 pandemic. That's the reason why the FDA doesn't seem like they have any ownership over this. They can't seem to respond to it because it's a military program. This has a military origin to it. And the program is executed like a military program. No one will be spared. There's no exceptions. You can kind of see that the similarities there.